Okay, I guess we'll proceed. My name is Thomas Weeks. They call me Tweaks around here. I'm kind of new to higher ed. I joined the cyber range about a year and a half ago. We joined Virginia Tech actually, and was kind of brought over here to help out with as a kind of consulting engineer. I work with our content, courseware folks to ensure that the content we get in the range actually works in the range. I also help our DevOps folks design Linux and operating system images that have the challenges we need and works in the way we want it to work and be able to scale, so folks can use it thousands of these at a time and it's not going to cause any problems. A little bit of background about me, since I'm new, I hadn't done one of these before. I come from DoD and civilian background with several years in the DoD contracting down in Texas, and a background as a sysadmin/engineer at Rackspace for about 17 years before coming over here to Virginia Tech. I've written some books, some Linux books. You look up Tweaks and Linux, you'll find some stuff out there. The Linux Troubleshooting Bible, Linux Toys 2, some things like that, some magazines and various things, enterprise type stuff over the years. So it's a lot of fun. I'm big in the open source community. I do Windows, but I prefer Linux because it's fun and I can get stuff done in Linux. It's a hoot. So real quick about the range. So Dave's gone over some of this before, but I see some of you are, I think, new here for the first time. So talk real quick about the cyber range. So the cyber range is a state-funded, Virginia state-funded cyber range where things get tested. We can actually provide education to state educators, cybersecurity and STEM educators, where students can log in and do dangerous things with dangerous tools that we wouldn't normally want kind of running loops on the school network, for example. So they can log into the range, which is a kind of a web front end to a cloud-based back end. Each student gets their own virtual machine, and that's the range part of it. The courseware repository that you're looking at here on the screen, on my screen, is where the actual content for a lot of the state educators repository is kept, so that educators can come here, get course curriculum for state-approved cybersecurity courses, and get going the same day, very, very quickly. Get access to the range for the actual cloud instances and access to the courseware, so they can download slide decks, hands-on labs and exercises, quizzes, things like that. So just in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're about here. I'm going to first go here to the courseware, because last week Dave talked about kind of intro to cryptography, and talked mainly about symmetric cryptography or shared key cryptography. So let's pick up where he left off. We're going to go in here into the courseware repository. To actually download the content, you need to have a login. So if you want to go ahead and get access to it, don't bother following along, because you won't be able to log into my virtual machines I'm working on now. But later, you can get in there, sign up, and download content. Start kicking the tires on what you're seeing me do here today. I'm going to just go ahead and look up for crypto. This was what I'm interested in teaching on today. So if I can spell it, search for crypto, and any modules that have any courses or lab exercises or slide decks that have crypto in it will pop up here. So we have courses and modules and workshops. I think his presentation last time was on cyber basics. I was going to start off doing cyber basics, but we have a new lab called the K through 12 basics for cyber defense and cryptography, and it's a really good series. It's written by one of our professors over at Radford University, Dr. Prem. Let's see, I'll just go in here and look at this. This gives an overview of the course. There's 4 different lessons involved, and learning objectives, and the actual content itself. So I'm going to go ahead and I think it's the second module here, cryptography. I'll go ahead and pull that open. And gives you a brief overview what the learning objectives are. And if you need to map to NIST frameworks or cybersecurity frameworks, they give you the KUs and KSAs for the NIST NICE KSAs, so you can actually see how these get applied to actual job skills and cybersecurity certifications. So the one where we're working on here is cryptography assessment. I would download that, but it's a docx file, and I'm a PDF guy, so I like PDFs. So I went ahead and downloaded it and converted it to PDF. And I went ahead and downloaded the presentation slides too and converted that to PDF. Let me flip over to that real quick. Let's see where, if I can find it. That's the lab. Here we go. So here's my cryptography slide deck that I could have just downloaded after gaining access to the content repository. So we're going to really quickly, we're just going to touch on, because this is a full 40 slide deck, we're only going to touch on the first 2 or 3 slides to give us some context about what we're talking about today. So right off the bat, they would put up the lesson objectives that's going to be covered in this module of the course. And the lesson objectives today are just touching on the need for cryptography. Dave already talked about symmetric cryptography, so we're not going to touch too much on that today, other than the definition. Explain the concepts, and then we're going to jump directly into the demonstrating how dual key or public key cryptography is used, as well as secure hash functions are the 2 things we're going to be talking about today. So outline, that's the short version of what I just said. And so first of all, just to touch on the need for cryptography. Cryptography's goals is basically to prevent sensitive data from being read without authorization. So that function is called confidentiality. To detect unauthorized tampering of sensitive data, which is referred to as availability. And then also to support digital signatures. This is called non-repudiation, and is essentially, so if you can imagine getting an email from a hacker that's posing as your friend, non-repudiation would guarantee that did not come from your friend, because if it came from your friend, it would be digitally signed. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about non-repudiation. In other words, if I got this thing from you, A, I know it came from you, and B, I know it couldn't have come from anyone else on the planet. So that's what digital signatures is all about. We'll talk a little bit about more of that as we get a little bit deeper. The 2 ways in which you see encryption used, the 2 basic things we see here, the slide says secure transmission across networks and secure data stored on computers. So in a nutshell, people easily refer to this as in transit and at rest. So anytime you're sitting with a legal team and talking about cryptography, and you said, yes, we run full encryption, what's that mean? Some people just mean SSL, that's in transit. Some people mean at rest on the disk, that's encrypted files. You need both to be truly secure and safe from most attack vectors. For example, if you're not encrypting on disk, they hack the server that your data resides on, and they have access to that. So it's not going to help you unless it's both encrypted, both in transit and at rest. So the 3 types of cryptography basically that we're talking about here are secret or symmetric key cryptography. I think you guys can see me highlighting things, I hope. Dave talked about this last time. A good example is a OTP, or one-time pad. Spies in World War II used this. They would have a single key that would both encrypt and decrypt. The encrypted message would simply pass through the key. You pass it one way, it encrypts it. Pass it the other way, it decrypts it. And that's how it works. The real problem with symmetric key encryption is getting the keys in a secure fashion to your other parties. For example, if you can imagine email, if you couldn't actually communicate with anyone unless you get them the key first, you can't email them the key, because then anyone that could sniff the email can get the key. So it literally comes down to a handoff problem, a security problem. You have to physically meet the person to get them the key. And that's actually what they did in the old spy days. They'd have a drop point, and they would drop off an encryption key, and the spy would get the encryption key, and then they would have a shared key or symmetric key. What we're talking about today is asymmetric key encryption, or public, also called public key cryptography. And that's a little more complicated. I don't have a slide for that today, because, well, we do, but we're not going to get into it. But basically, you have a public and a private key. If I'm going to send you a message, I grab your public key from a public place. You can sprinkle those all around the world. It doesn't matter. There's key servers I can download your public key from using your email address or whatever identifier we want to use. Grab your public key, encrypt a secret message with your public key, send you the message, and it can only be decrypted with the private key that goes with that public key. So they're key pairs. So when I create a key pair on my system, that private key needs to really, really be private and only stay on my computer or even on a thumb drive or something more secure like a smart card that you can carry around with you. And that never leaves your possession. Because if you go to an office machine and put your key in it, whoever has access to the office machine now has access to your private key. So private key storage and key management is a whole other subject. It's very complex. We're not going to get into it here. We're just going to talk about the basics of how dual key encryption works. And then lastly, we're going to touch on secure hashes. Let me take off my watch to make sure I'm staying on time here. I want to go over. I start to blather. Secure hashes is basically a cryptograph. We're talking about cryptographic hashes. A hash function is a one-way way of creating a message digest. So you take a message, say an email, for example, pump it through a hash. You're going to get a small fingerprint of that file out. And if one bit or one byte in that email changes, that entire fingerprint's going to change. And by doing this, we can make sure, and we'll see how this is important later on, but if you send an email saying, I fully approve of what we're doing in this business plan, and someone went in and said, I don't approve of this, what we're doing in this business plan, with digital signatures, it would set off a red flag saying, warning, this message has been modified since transit. It's not encrypted, it's just got what's called a hash, or it's got a hash of the message that's digitally signed. That's back to the digital signature, sorry, with the dual key. So a hash is a way of creating a message digest, and that can be digitally signed using dual key encryption. So they kind of go together. We'll see how that works together here in a moment. So we're not going to get into this because this is where I said I would stop. I'm going to close that down. Let's go ahead and jump over to the actual cyber range itself, if I can find it. That's my module. All right. Okay. So here we are in the cyber range, the actual range, cloud range portion of it, of the system. Notice it's console.virginiacyberrange.net. Our website for finding content on the content repository side of things is virginiacyberrange.org. So .org is our content repository, and this console.virginiacyberrange.net is our range. And you can get to them both from the .org website. You click on range, it takes you here. Click on content repository, and it takes you to the content repo. So this is the course we're doing today, and this would be the course you'd want to, the name of the course you'd want to give a course you're teaching that's going to be for a semester long, for example. And you put multiple exercises and labs and slide decks, mainly labs and exercises, in the range here as exercise environments. The exercise environment I have today is I'm using our K-12 cybersecurity environment, which it's an environment that's of Kali Linux that's also tied together with the PREMS K through 12 material, which is really good content. We just got done vetting and publishing that. So normally I'd have a classroom full of students here with the team names. I'm Team T Weeks, so that's my environment. If you're an instructor, you'd be able to go in here and see all the students and when they logged in, how long they've been logged in, look at their environments, reset their environments if they messed something up. So it's a good general management interface. I'm going to go ahead and pop in here, hit the join button. It'll pop up a console and give us a login. Now this is going to give us a virtual desktop into the cyber range. So most of our classes use student. And by the way, the instructions for logging into these environments are included in the handouts we normally provide for the labs and exercises. This is Kali Linux, and I've already got it up and running here. You'll see here. It's basically a desktop in a browser. It's very, very quick and responsive. I don't know how fast this comes across in our webinar, but first time I pulled this up, I was shocked at how fast it was, because this is basically RDP running an HTML5 WebSockets window. browser window. So it's very responsive. You see I still have my browser tabs up here. I can flip between, multiple desktop environments up here and flip between them. In this machine environment, we have one VM. We'll often have 2, 3, or 4 VMs, such as Windows machines we can attack or defend, SQL database servers we can attack or defend, things like that. We can run nmap scans from here. We can attack things, and it's all safe because we're in the cloud with kind of rubber bumpers on. We can't get out except to browse to things through 80 and 443. So it's pretty good. Really, really nice environment if you haven't been in here before. So let's go ahead and flip over to our material for the day. Have any questions or comments? Okay, no. All right, so this is the handout that I would have downloaded from the content repository. This is module 5, lesson 2, cryptography. Tells kind of what we're going to be touching on, what we're going to be using. The 2 tools we're using is GPG, which is the open source version of kind of PGP, pretty good privacy. This is GPG is GNU Privacy Guard. And then MD5 sum, which is the hash function we're going to be using later on. We're going to spend most of our time in GPG though, because that's the tool that's going to allow us to do dual key encryption. All right, first thing we're going to start off with is generating a private key. So actually, I should say a public private key or a key pair. So when you generate with GPG and similar dual key tools, when you generate a key, you're going to be generating a key pair. And again, the public key is what you share out to the world. You'd put out on a key server. You'd upload to your website that you control to show that this is truly me. And then the private key is what you keep very, very safe. So let's go ahead and do that. From the command line, we use the GPG command. And if you ever want to see what's going on, you can do a help. Lots and lots of options there, or man GPG for more information. It's a very complicated tool. A lot of people don't use it from the command line. Most people honestly would just use this to set up a key once, and then use like Thunderbird with some plugins for doing secure email to do basically encrypted email with cohorts and friends and things like professionals. And especially if you're in the security realm, people want to know what your private key is so they know they can send you secure information. Now, how those keys get trusted is another matter. That's where you depend on X509 certificates, like kind of like when an SSL certificate verifies a website, except you'd use like X509 to verify an individual, or you can use web of trust type paradigms that allow you to trust other people. Trust people you know that know other people, and by extension you can trust them to whatever degree you determine is safe. So by that, just like you have the 6 degrees of freedom, how close am I to Kevin Bacon, for example, genetically, to web of trust, which is how close am I to this person, how close is this person to a person that I know or that I've signed their keys. So we're not going to talk about key signatures, but just about the tool itself, GPG. So let's go ahead and generate a key. If I'm following along on the documentation, this is the kind of an older school way of doing it, full generate key, and we're doing this because we're being asked to generate an older key type called a DSA El Gamal algorithm key with a 1024-bit size. Most people generate now RSA keys of 4096 bits or greater sometimes. And if you just do a gen key, that's the type it will generate. GPG. And by the way, you have command line completion, so you hit tab a couple times and you can see the options available to you. Gen key is normally what most people would do, but we're going to do a full gen key, which is going to give us the option of picking the encryption algorithm and bit size we want. So we're going to select, we've been told to select 2 DSA El Gamal. I actually have a key of this type, very old, from 2005. I'm going to select a bit size on this key of 1024 bits. And give it an expiration date. I'm going to say not expires. I think in the assignment it says give it at least 1 month. Don't make it expire in less than 1 month. So I'm just going to go ahead and say never expires. Is this correct? Yes. Real name. This is going to be my name. So Thomas Weeks. And in this material, I think we use example.com in all of our messages. But in your class, for your student's name, actually tell them, have them use the real name and the real email address, because later they're going to be asked to mail out these things and sign keys over people's emails. So this is actually useful. So real name, email address, tweaks. I'm going to use example.com because this is a teaching course and I'm not going to give you my real email address. No comment needed. Say OK. Now the next step is it's generating the key, but it's going to ask me for a passphrase. Passphrase is the second form of authentication. So a private key is something you have. A passphrase is something you know. So those two things give you two-factor authentication. Very important. I can't stress, you can't reverse engineer this passphrase. I say passphrase, not password, because passwords are classically very short. Passphrases are longer. So make it long, make it robust, make it something you'll never forget. Most people use sentences with some special characters, for example. I'm just going to say, this is my, I would never say this out loud, passphrase. This is my, let me say pass. I would normally make it much longer, but it would make my video much longer. So this is my pass. Warning, okay, if they've told me it's insecure, but I'm going to go ahead and take it. This is my pass, is what I used. There we go. Now it spit out the DSA bit and bit size. It also gave me what this is called my my key fingerprint. This is a 32 character, I believe, 32 character hexadecimal value. These first 8 characters are the most important ones. These are the ones you should probably eventually memorize, because this is called your key ID. If anyone ever asks you for your key ID, you can give them that little value and they can look you up. They should also be able to identify you by your email address. And this is why now at this point I could imitate you. So it's very important that once you establish a key to be able to trust someone, that you eventually get together, verify identities like using state identification, and sign each other's keys. So just like key distribution was important in the SPY days with one-time pads, key signing is very important, or key authentication, or key certifications rather. So either X509 using commercial certs, or Web of Trust using private signatures, signing each other's keys. And you can, if you're a good friend with someone, you'll probably just sign their key and not care about it. But when you meet strangers, you want to make sure they're not impersonating other people that you communicate with professionally. So just say that real quick. All right, so I've gone ahead and created this. I'm going to skip this portion. It's talking about when you're creating your key, the randomness of your machine is important. And it is important, and you can install these tools to make your key generation more random and more secure, but it's not needed on the newer kernels. I think we're running 4.x kernels, and this was done on pre-3.x. So I'm going to ignore that for now. And we want to go ahead and export our public key, or even just list our keys. I'm going to do a GPG list key. And I should only see my key here, and there's my fingerprint, my key ID, my email address, and what my sub encryption key is. The E means this is for encryption. This one is for signing, and I forget what C is. I can't remember, honestly. I'll read the man page to find out. But this is my 1024-bit public key. My sub key is what I use for signing. Okay. I should say my private key is a sub key. Now, if I need to export, if I want to share my public key with someone else, I need to export it. So you use the export, and by default you'll never export your private key except in special situations. So export defaults to your public key, but you would do an export and then the name of the thing of either the email address or the key ID or the key fingerprint that you're wanting to export, and then file redirect it out like this. Or you can use GPG --output, the name of the output file you want. And this armor is important because this ASCII makes it ASCII armored. In other words, it makes it into numbers and letters that humans can read, as opposed to a binary. This would be a no, this actually would not be binary. This is also armored. Well, I'll just go ahead and show how it works real quick. I'll do this without redirecting to an output to a file like this, so you can see what it looks like. GPG export tweaks, and I should be able to command line complete that. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Hit tab, command line completed. If I just do it like that, it's going to go to binary to standard out, so it'll be a gobbledygook probably. Yeah, there's my gobbledygook. So that's the binary key. If I do a -- armor, then it'll be ASCII encoded armor version of that exported key. Well, or not. I think armor has to go back here. Or I should just read the man page. Oh, there it is. That was it. So let me expand this window a little bit so we can see the full thing. There we go. Bring it over here. So you'll see I just outputted that. It went to standard output. So if I want to save that to a file, I'm going to hit Control-L, clear the screen. I'm going to output that to, and they're using the format fred pub.asc. ASC means it's ASCII armored. Pub means it's my public key. So I'm going to call this tweaks. I'm going to actually not just put tweaks. I'll put my email address there. I'm going to export it to tweaks@example.com.pub.asc. There we go. And there I'll see it. tweaks@example.com.pub.asc. Now I could take this thing and actually upload it to key servers or send it to friends. It's public, so I can send it anywhere. It's not a security risk. My private key would be. By the way, you want to archive. Always archive your private key. Usually print it out to paper and put it in a safe. You don't want to keep it, export it and then keep it on the machine where someone could lift it or gain access to it easily. So that's only because if your hard drive dies, you don't want, you're not backed up or your backups fail. You want to be able to always recover your public key or your public and private keys. Your public keys are normally out there, but your private key is really critical. So I would do this with my public and my private key and put them both in my safe at home or something like that. Okay, so I've exported that. ASCII armored it, so I'm good to go there. Next down, I've been asked to find Bob's public key and import it. So when I say import it, you have on your system in the GNU PG directory are your key pairs, your key rings, I should say. So here's my public key ring. I have a trusted database telling how much I trust the various rings, and then my private keys are kept in this special directory here. If I poked in there, you'd see. I'm not going to cat it out because that would show you my private key. And again, most people don't operate at the command line on this level. It's just there's two private keys in here. Look at that. Interesting. Most people don't operate on the command line like this. So this is just, I like to show how things work under the hood. So once you're using it, you'll know what the name of the directories you need to back up to be able to back up your key rings and your public and private keys. So we're going to import Bob's public key. It's bob.pub.asc. So let's go ahead and do that. We do an LSL reverse chronological listing, and we'll see there's bob.pub.asc. So let's go ahead and grab that, because if I do a GPG list keys right now, I just see mine, list keys, plural. And let's go ahead and import Bob's, and that's going to be GPG -- import. Oops. There you go. Import, and then the name of the file. So GPG -- import space Bob, and just hit tab, it completes, and there we go. Bob Smith at bob.example.com imported. And now if I do my list keys again, there we go. I see my key, my public key, my signing key, and then his public key. And notice I don't get his private key. I see a reference to it, but it's not on my system. And I can verify that by saying list secret keys. And it'll list my secret key. This is the key that's associated with my secret key, my encryption key here. But that's the only secret key on my system. You can add multiple secret keys. Some people will have a separate key pair for work and home and other affiliations, professional affiliations. That's fine. You just need to make sure that you know what your default is, so when you're signing things and sending things out, that people are going to know about that, and or you're signing something, they can verify that he signed it with his private key if that private key doesn't have a matching public key, or they're using the wrong one, then it may not match. So it gets complicated, so just be aware you're doing the right thing. Okay, so right off the bat, it wants us to create a text file saying, hello, this is your name. I like to send encrypted messages via public key cryptography. So I'm going to copy that. And by the way, copying and pasting things into this is like RDP session. You can't really just paste it directly. So our interface has a little kind of a middleware pop-up. If you hit Control Alt and Shift, it's a very little known secret. It's not even documented, I don't think yet. You can paste it in here and then kind of recopy it, and now you can gain access to it down here in your environment. So I can paste it now into a text file. Let's go ahead and edit this with a Nano or Vim or something. I'm more of a Vim guy. I'm going to use Vim. But yeah, we by default, our Kali environments all have Nano installed, Pico, is it gedit? No, there's not gedit, but there's like LeafPad, I think. LeafPad, yeah, LeafPad is the kind of preferred GUI. I'll go ahead and use LeafPad since that's most approachable. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in there. Paste. Hello, my name is Tweaks, and I'm going to save this as, what do you want me to save it as? Example.txt. Yeah. So save as example.txt. If anyone has any messages, by the way, any questions, just fire per question, and Maureen will get my attention. Example.txt. Folder, student. Save it. Okay. Go ahead and kick out of LeafPad. And there's my example file. Cat it out. All right, that's good. Actually, I hate that. No trailing CRLF or line feed. There we go. Some white space there. And now, cat it out. There we go. Hello, this is Tweaks. All right. Excuse me. So next thing they want us to do is encrypt it. And it wants to encrypt this file, and where encrypted.txt.gpg is the name of the new encrypted file, you'll be then prompted to use your ID of the person whose public key you want to use. So this is who we're going to send it to. You need to know who you're going to send it to. You can't encrypt to a group without some special software. So you're encrypting, when you encrypt something, you encrypt it to a person. You either encrypt it to yourself, so only you can read it, or you encrypt it to one other person or one other group of people that all share a key pair. So let's go ahead and do that. GPG, and they want this binary encrypted, so we're not doing ASCII armor. So output, we're going to do -- output, and they want us to call it encrypted.txt. txt.gpg. Normally, you want to put a GPG on the file extension as a file. It will do that automatically if you don't give it an output file. But if you don't, the system can't. Once it's encrypted, the system can't tell what the file is. File extensions are meaningless in Linux. Windows uses file extensions to predict the file type. Linux and Unix operating systems look at the first few bytes of the file to determine what the file type is. So if you don't put a file extension, there's no way of telling what it is because it's encrypted. You can't even look at it. It looks like gobbledygook. So that's kind of important. We're going to -- encrypt it. Encrypt. And then the file we're encrypting is, of course, example.com. Okay, I've got 25 minutes remaining. I should be okay. Okay, and as soon as I hit enter, it should ask me what my passphrase is or who I want to send it to. So I want to send this to, I think I'm going to need to send this to Bob. Yeah, I'm going to use Bob's public key. So Bob at, Bob at example.com. Okay. There's no assurance this key belongs to. Okay, so this is just saying I've never trusted this guy's key before, so I want to do it anyway. Yeah, that's fine because this is I know what I'm doing here. Okay, no more recipients. Hit enter. All right, so that's it. Now if I do an LSLRT, LSLRT. There we go. There's my encrypted message. Now this should be binary. It should be gobbledygook. We shouldn't be able to read it. This is, so I just look at the original message. That's the original message. Oops, no. Original message is example.txt, and the encrypted message is, I misspelled encrypted. Awesome. Encrypted. Okay, so as you see, it's not legible. So let me go ahead and move the name of that file. Encrypted to encrypted, just for correctness. So encrypted.txt.gpg. We could have ASCII armored this, and it would turn it into an ASCII-based encrypted message. We'll look at that a little bit later. So now Bob is the only one who can read this message. I can't even read this message. For example, if I try to do a GPG decrypt on encrypted.txt.gpg, okay, I don't have a secret key for Bob. So literally, Bob's the only one who can now read this message. This is nice if you use its GPG's default settings. It can encrypt it and replace the file, so it no longer exists on the hard drive. So you can encrypt something and it's good to go. Most Linux file browsers have encryption built in. You can right-click and encrypt something, and it encrypts it in place. So you don't have to mess with the command line stuff here like we're doing. But this is good for learning. Okay, so now we have the file that contains the encrypted message using Bob's public key. The deliverable here for the student would be to take a screenshot of your public key and the encrypted file and submit that to your instructor. And it looks like he wants us to use LSLA star text and pub. So this is part of the assignment. So lsla.txt star and dot star pub. There we go. So that just sends him the listing, and this is where I would take a screenshot of this. And getting things in and out of the range can be a little problematic because you can't just SCP things off. You're locked down to web traffic only. So most instructors will, either if they're using Canvas or Blackboard or something, or they may elect to use Google Drive, they'll say, okay, take deliverable 1, save this, and then stick it in your Google Drive or stick it in Canvas to submit your answers. This is really good for a testing environment too. This is how you do a test in the same way. And here we go, talking about tests. This is SelfTest. And by the way, this SelfTest, I think we actually need to do it because we're going to use this later. So you can test whether your public-private keys are working by using this method. Encrypt the same file, but this time use your own public key. So we're going to use encrypt it again. And what are we going to call it? We're going to call it encrypt it, and then we'll decrypt it using secrets or out.txt. So let's do it again. We'll do a GPG. Let's do a search for encrypt. Oops. There we go. So output, I'm going to output encrypted.txt.gpg. GPG, same thing. Example.txt, same thing. This time I want to use tweaks at example.com. That's the one I'm going to use. And T. Oh, I just did encrypted again. Yeah, I did. encrypted.txt.gpg --encrypt example.txt recipients tweaks at example.com. One thing I didn't mention is normally it should ask me for my passphrase right here. It should say, okay, you have access to Tweaks' private key. Prove who you are by typing in your passphrase. It didn't ask me for my passphrase. It should have asked me right there. It didn't because there's a thing called a GPG agent that will cache your passphrase for up to 10 minutes. So for the next 10 minutes while I'm sitting here, it's going to function with my passphrase as if I'd already typed it. So that's the only reason why it's not asking me for it. So another reason, if you leave your machine, another good reason to lock your terminal. So anyway, all that to say is now I can prove, now I can prove that, did I just do that again? Looks like it. That's more of a typo. That's awesome. All right, so before I really mess things up, let me go ahead and decrypt. Decrypt encrypted.txt.gpg. Okay, now it's going to ask me for my passphrase to prove who I am. So it allowed me to encrypt it, but not to decrypt it. So this is, let's see if I can remember it. This is my pass. All right, there we go. It decrypted it and put it out to standard output, just like that. So now they wanted us to actually do that with the output file of secrets are out. So I could just do it like this. Secrets are out.txt, or I could use the -- output function either way. So that tells me what it was encrypted with and by who, and this shows me there's my actual content. Okay. All right, moving right along. New decrypted file. With this, you should have gained hands-on experience to be able to encrypt and decrypt messages. Have some fun. So this is where we're telling students, hey, if you want to take your ASCII armored public key, share it with other classmates, you can send each other secret messages. I'm talking really secret messages that even the NSA can't crack at this point in time. So really, really strong personal encryption. However, you can't get that pub file. You can't get these pub files off the system. Unless you use like web-based email or something. So you can go out through a web browser to gmail.com, for example, and send it through there, but you can't actually send email from within this virtual machine. So just FYI, we tell students that right here, either using Gmail, or you can go to like Google Drive or something, or Dropbox or something like that, and get things out of the range. But the range is purposely secured, so they can't easily get out and do things. Let's see, so let's go ahead and do some digital signatures. So real quick, we got about 15 minutes remaining. I'm going to do a GPG output. There's going to be a sig.sig file. I'm going to basically sign that example.txt file. All right, so I'm going to copy this. Flip back over here. Control-Alt-Shift is what brings that up. Here's my command. Control-Shift makes it go away, and I can paste it in. I hope. There we go. GPG --output example.txt.sig. This creates a digitally signed encrypted message. Should ask me. Oh, it didn't ask me for my passphrase. I imagine to check it, it might. Unless it wasn't encrypted, it's just signed. I think that's just digital signatures there. You can also do what's called a detached ASCII armored signature, or detached signature. So there's two ways. If you just sign a message, it actually signs the message itself and kind of makes it opaque, cryptographically opaque. But it signs it, and so that's the non-repudiation part. If you want to have encryption and non-repudiation, you have to tell it encrypt and sign, and then you get both. So you need to actually consciously do that if you want to sign something for non-repudiation purposes. And that's to make sure the content didn't change. So for example, once I sign that, if one bit of the message changes in transit, then it'll say, oh, warning, this has been modified. That's very important. As we'll see later with hashes. Let's go ahead and look at the output now. RT. So here's the signature. If we cat that out, that's probably going to be binary. Yep, exactly. So if we want to ASCII armor that, we would do the same thing, except we would use -- armor, if you remember. And I'd probably put a .asc at the end of this to indicate that it's ASCII armored. Okay. Okay, and there's the ASCII armored version. Cat that out. it is. That's what a ASCII armor signed, digitally signed message looks like. So when people say digital signatures, they're not talking about a signature like with a pen. They're talking about these documents that can provide non-repudiation. So you do this in critical log files or anything you're submitting to the court of law needs to be digitally signed. That's what digital signatures are all about. We're going to skip over that. To prove that it is who it is, who we say it is. Let's see. Let me see if GPG will handle it by itself. GPG. See what it does if I just give it this .sig.asc. Warning: no command file exists. You want to overwrite it. So it's gonna try to overwrite it. So I don't want it to do that. But if I output this to x.txt option, sorry. X.txt and verify is how you verify it, by the way. Verify. If you're not sure about the commands, you get a V and hit tab. Let's see what options you have. I'm to the verify. There we go. There we go. So that's the signature. Says it's a good signature. It matches its cryptographic hash. And warning: not a detached signature. It was looking for a sig file too because of the naming. But looks like it's good, and it would output to x.txt, I believe. So there it is, cat x.txt. So there's the original message. So it kind of decrypted it, and I'm not sure what level of encryption that is. That may just be a very, very low grade encryption versus your encrypting key. But anyway, it is digitally signed, and it's opaque, so it's kind of pseudo encrypted. Since digital signatures involve signing a text document with a private key, you're usually prompted when you do this. Of course, unless you have your GPG agent grabs your authentication. If you're going to rely on key pair, you should always make a backup of your public and private keys, as we said earlier. So to do that, so let's go ahead and ASCII armor export our secret key like this. I want to just do it like this. This is more elegant. Go. By the way, I'm highlighting all, pasting, then I'm highlighting again and copying, and it's kind of weird, but that's how you get it into the buffer of the virtual machine. So that's what I'm doing there. All right, GPG armor exporting. In other words, I want to export my public key, tweaks at example.com. And we kind of already did this at the beginning, didn't we? Your email, public key. Yeah, we did this already. Tweaks at example.com. I'm going to do private key. Or secret. Key.asc. And to do that, we need to do export-secret, I believe. Export secret keys for tweaks at example.com to outputting to tweaks at example.com.secret.key.asc because it's ASCII armored. Asking for my passphrase as it should. This is my pass. All right, there we go. All right, so there is my private key. So you guys can see, check it out. You guys can see my private key. And it even says private key, okay? This is the thing you'd print out, put in the safe, by the way. So, the reason they had you do that is because they have you export your secret key and then export your public key. So that's what this is. So this is your secret key, public key, so you have them both. You also want to export the, there's a thing called your GNU PG, your revocations. This is called a revocation key. If I cat out this file, this is a revocation certificate that will, you publish it and it will revoke a key saying, my key was compromised, don't trust this key anymore. You can see what it looks like here. This file says, this is your revocation certificate here, and you need to remove this semicolon and then publish this out to all the key servers in the world. It'll propagate out, and every time someone tries to get an email from a key that's been revoked, it'll say, warning, this key's been revoked, and it really works. So you should always do that, because if your machine gets compromised, you need to be able to recall a key. In other words, and this is the same in any type of security, you're using keys to open doors. You never use a key you can't change. Okay, never use a key you can't change, because once a key is compromised, you need to be able to change it out. That's what a revocation certificate does. If you don't make a revocation certificate, I think GPG is now doing that by default, but if you don't make a revocation certificate, then you can't prove that someone stole your laptop and that's no longer in your control. So that's important if you're going to be serious about security. And that all comes into key management. Key management is a nightmare. We're not going to touch on it today because it's a very complex subject, but it's important. So self-test, you can verify if your signature was created correctly by simply decrypting the document using your public key as follows. So this was, well, we already did it. I did a verification. Actually verify and decrypt in this function does the kind of the same thing. It decrypted and it verified all at once a digitally signed file. So we have a couple minutes. We have like 5-6 minutes to talk about hashes. Real quick, cryptographic hashes. There's quite a few different types. If anyone has any questions, pop them in there. But quite a few different kind of cryptographic hashes out there. There's a lot that have been expired, no longer any good. We don't want to use anymore. One of them is MD5. Cryptographically, it's been proven that MD5s can have what's called collisions. If I have some random text, I pump it through an MD5 hashing algorithm, MD5 sum, for example. It'll create a cryptographic or a cryptographic digest, it's called. It's been proven mathematically that it's possible to pad and change certain things in a message, and of course, and end up with the same cryptographic sum, which shouldn't be possible. But if you think about it, you have an infinite number of things that can be pumped through a sum, MD5 sum. You have a finite number of digest space here, so things are going to collide. But it was proven in MD5 sum that it's enough of a worry that it's no longer trustworthy. So a lot of the world's moved to SHA-1 up through, I think we have 384 on the system. A lot of people use SHA-512 now to digitally sign things. But in this lab, he's using MD5 sum, and the files have already been set up for us in this MD5's directory. And MD5s, it's a good way of, if you download an ISO or something that you want to trust to be able to boot off of, you download something, you want to make sure it's not corrupted or been tampered with. And that's where you'll see these MD5s. You'll see an ISO, and then you'll see an MD5 file to go with it. That just shows you what the MD5 hash of that ISO is. If you hash the whole thing, you can literally type MD5 sum and hash an entire ISO. You'll get a fingerprint for that ISO, that CD-ROM image. Same kind of thing here. These are text files that have been set up. I'm going to go ahead and show you what each one is. So I'm going to cat out a.txt. I'll just A star, and then I'll echo to put some white space in there. And then cat B star and echo for the white space, and then cat out. This is just to expedite things because I got like 4 minutes, so I'm trying to keep things on task here. Cat out C star. So this is going to cat out the A text file and then a.text.md5 sum, and same thing for B and C. So here we go. Here's the A file. Hello, Virginia Cyber Range. This is supposed to be the hash of this file. Virginia Cyber Range is super cool, and this is supposed to be the hash of this file. And then lawyers enjoy a little mystery, why if everyone came forward, and okay, so it's some quote and with another MD5 sum at the bottom. So we're supposed to find out, the students have been told to find out which MD5 hash fingerprint there doesn't match, which hash digest does not match. So we can test this. We can do MD5 sum of a.txt, and there it is. So the last 4 digits are C66B, C66B, that matches. I usually use the last 4 because if you change 1 bit anywhere in here, this entire hash changes. It's the same thing as like with an XOR function, where if 1 bit changes, the entire output stream is going to change. Same kind of thing here. It's cryptographically semi-secure. It's called cryptographic hashing versus regular hashing like XOR, based on different mathematical operations. On the second one, let's cat out b.txt. Oops, that didn't work. What an MD5 sum of b.txt. So that should match this one. So E88C, E88C, I know I can trust that. So if this was an ISO, I know it's good to go. I can trust it. It matches. It's not corrupt. Hasn't been tampered with. And then this one here is C. If I do an MD5 sum of C.txt, okay, I see 29F6 and not so much. And this, this entire string is completely different. So let's go ahead and pretend it was okay. Let's say I'm going to create a new MD5 sum. Give me MD5 sum of C.txt and output that to C.txt.md5. So now it should be good to go. Now if I do that big long cat echo thing again, where'd it go? Okay, whatever. Cat C star. Let's do that. So now here's the message, and here's the hash, and I know it's good because I can reproduce it. MD5 sum of C.txt. If I can type. Okay, so 29F6. Now look, if I go in here and say C.txt, I'm running out of time, so this is going to be it. And put in the words don't. Imagine this is an email. Okay. Now I do an MD5 sum, and the entire hash is different. So it's obviously something has changed because the entire hash is different. So that's hashes in a nutshell, and they're very, very useful for cryptographically proving that something is it is what you were told it was, or you downloaded something. Again, I would use digital signatures to verify non-repudiation, but hashes are good for a lot of stuff out there for downloading things and making sure it wasn't tampered with. But if a hacker got on the system, they could, rehash everything and fool you. So that's where digital signatures comes into play. So if they don't have access to your private key, then put a signature instead of an MD5 sum, and it'll give you more cryptographic non-repudiation. It'll give cryptographic non-repudiation. So that's about it. Any questions? We're out of time. We're completely out of time, but I'll stay on for a couple minutes if anyone has any questions. I'm not sure if I can hear anyone. I guess we're just doing chat. Hey, Bob Patterson, how's it going, man? All right. With that, I'm not sure what's being covered next week. I think it's Russ is going to do some type of hands-on crypto. Maureen, maybe you can share with everyone, but that's about it. If anyone has any further questions, you can reach me at t.weeks@virginiacyberrange.org, and that's it. Thank you much.